Mentorship Military is Robert Gowan. We're sitting at 15 Perry Street, and I'm sitting here with my sidekick, Jason Belford.
What up?
So Jason's filling in for Paul, but Jason's become more of a regular around here, and we have a special guest in the sense of somebody who is a mentor and a friend, Dave Elder. So Dave, thank you so much for joining the Mentorship Military podcast.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
And if you can't tell, Dave is from Alabama.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Well, I want to, one of the things that Jason mentioned to me is your family background. I guess you had a grandfather who served in World War II. Tell us a little bit about that.
The Korean War.
Korean War, okay.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, Dave, Jason told me wrong, so that's all right.
Still an amazing war.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
He was a command sergeant major.
Okay.
He was a great man. I don't know what to say about him.
I bet you tell the story about the name and then your and then the plaque stuff. You give that.
Oh gosh, Jason.
Elder is a Scottish name, right?
Is it?
Yeah, I think so. Go ahead.
You know
Anyway,
more about it than I do. All right, you guys make me nervous now.
You get in front of tens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
You'll be fine.
Is this live?
no, it's being recorded though, so just
okay.
might as well be.
Oh God. Well, let me think about what I got to say here. Now you just jump right in. So, what do you want to know about my grandfather?
Just he said it was he had a best friend, right? And his friend,
That was actually my father.
your father, yeah.
Yeah, he had a best friend. His name was Randall Stearns, and he was killed in Vietnam. So he named me David Randall, and I named my son Jackson Randall. So it's kind of cool. We got to go to the Vietnam War Memorial, and I got to show Jackson where his name came from and what it meant. And I really didn't know the meaning of elder. It's a long story behind that, but so I just told my son that it meant a warrior's heart. So I told him, growing up, hey, your name means warrior's heart. Never forget where you come from. And my wife, when he went off to the military, he's in the Air Force now, she wrote a little piece, and in there it said, obviously to know Jackson, he never Googled it because he only just believed.
That's amazing.
And it was kind of cool.
Yeah, that is cool. So what is the story between your father and this gentleman?
Well, Randall Stearns, they were just high school buddies, and I went through the draft, and Randall was shot and killed in Vietnam. And so I don't know a lot about the story. All I know is that my dad would take me to the Stearns house every now and then, and I would play in the front yard and didn't really know why I was there. And they would come out and watch, and then I would get in the car and leave. And later on in life, I learned that, that was Randall's parents. And so my dad, I maybe didn't know what to say or what to do, but they loved watching me come play in the yard.
Did you ever do any research on this guy? I mean, go and get his military file if you can, or
No, that's a great point, and I probably should do that.
Yeah.
We have a memorial in Tuscaloosa where I'm from, and he's on the wall there also.
Awesome.
So, pretty neat deal.
But never done any more deeper research just to get to know the guy.
I haven't.
Very, very interesting story, though. And I mean, I guess it wasn't necessarily uncommon for people who had very close friends or something of that nature to name their child to keep that memory going. But did your dad talk about even before service, their life or anything? And
not a lot. My dad was real reserved.
Yeah,
he didn't talk about it a lot.
Okay,
you get that a lot in Vietnam vets. That's pretty quick. Yeah, that's pretty.
But your dad didn't serve.
My dad did serve.
Oh, okay.
He did.
So they both got drafted.
They both got drafted. Yes, they did.
Served together.
Served in different theaters. Actually, Randall. I think Randall was in the Navy.
Okay.
Yeah, and my dad was in the Guard.
Did you Where'd you grow up in Alabama at?
I grew up in Tuscaloosa, born and raised in Tuscaloosa.
So for you, Dave's a big entrepreneur, and a big military supporter, and the way I met Dave was through Strike Hard Productions, Fight Corps stuff, and he has a great story. Like he literally, built his own life great, as an entrepreneur, and his philosophies are unmatched. But he's done the whole struggle, living in the trailer park, eating ramen noodles, to a very, very successful businessman nowadays. And to see somebody go through build that life like that, and then what I've seen, a 40-year-old man now, but throughout life, those people kind of forget where they come from, a lot of times, and they kind of get too big for the small people, if you will. But Dave and his family are my family. So I feel like I'm literally, I'll go walk in my house like I'm walking at home, and they kind of took me under the wing, and we'll get to that in a minute. But just to see Dave and know his family and know how much they support, and then how then his son. So his son Jackson, you want to tell a story about the flag, Dave, for Jackson and the Army?
Yeah. So my son, at 10 years old, I asked him, I said, I was this Little League baseball coach. I said, Jackson, we can be the Braves. We can be, who do you want to be? He said, I want to be Army. I said, Army? He said, yeah, because he loved Jason Belford. He met Jason a couple years before, and he's like, I'm going to be Army. So our Little League baseball team was Army.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, because everybody else was the Braves and the Rockies, and here comes Army.
Yeah.
So
you didn't lose, did you?
No, not very often. I had Jason was coming in for a fight, which I had an MMA production company, and I was a promoter and a matchmaker, and I asked Jason, I said, hey, man, I know you're cutting weight, but man, we're playing in a tournament, man. Will you come just give these guys a little pump-up story? And so he comes in, and man, he goes into this in sniper mode, and these little 10-year-olds are just hanging on every word. And I have a picture of all the backs of their jerseys just watching Jason, and at the end he gave Jackson a flag, and that's the first flag he ever gave Jackson. Yeah. And so there's a YouTube video out there, and there's some comments under there about, oh, that kid doesn't know what the flag means, and at the time he didn't. But as a mentor, Jason taught him, and he always wanted to go serve. And I didn't get to serve. I had a brain injury at when I was 18 years old, and ended up having surgery on it at 24. And so I never got to serve. The rest of my family did. So Jackson picked the torch back up. And Jason, he just followed through Jason's footsteps. So a neat story. You want to tell the rest of it with the flag?
Yeah, Jackson's an outstanding kid. Like I said, everybody, like I said, you can spend 10 minutes around Dave, and you want to spend 20 and 30 and 40. And it's just, that's his whole family's that way. But they just make you better. We talked yesterday about making your circle tight. That's exactly what I've tried to do because of them. But so I gave Jackson his first flag at the baseball field, and I was cutting weight. I was starving to death and cotton mouth, and I was about that. Probably I looked like I'm about to die in the video too. My brain wasn't working, and I was like, I have no idea what to say to these kids. Right. And I did pitching coaching for my son too. So I talked to baseball players and kids. But I was like, I don't know what to say to the kids. But I rambled through some. The sniper partner teammate type thing, and how you lean on each other. But it got to 100,000 likes or 100,000 views. Something crazy.
We won.
Yeah, we definitely won that one. But if we could get 100,000 on this, it'd be great. Yeah. But, I gave him that flag, and I'll jump forward a little bit. So Jackson was getting ready to leave to go off to SEER school here last couple of weeks, and I have a flag that I've carried since 2010 on my kit. It's been on every deployment, every mission I've been on, and but I've carried other flags for people, and I would get like a certificate, that says this flag was flown to face the enemy, such and such. And I would give those to family members, that, were supportive and stuff, and I wanted them to have it. But I had mine that meant the most to me, and it had been to everything. It's, it's an old rugged flag.
Yeah.
It's you can tell it's been through the wash. But my last deployment, my son actually deployed too, and we ripped out together, which was pretty cool. And I gave him that flag to, I was like passing it on. I was like, hey, what better honor to give something that's, I feel like when, I'm carrying, Old Glory with me, you know what I mean? Like, and it gives me a purpose to be here, and why, when I put my kid on, I'm like, why I do what I do. And that's the significance to what the flag's meant to me. And, that flag's been on my back when, I've, had to do my job, and I've lost Ranger buddies, and it just has so much meaning wrapped up in that flag. And when I put that on my back every day, I go out, it's just that visual reminder that, like, this is why, and this is what depends on what we go out and do every day as Rangers. And I was able to pass that on to my son, and I kind of gave him like how it made me feel and why I do what I do. People say thank you for your service. I'm like, thank you. It's still that kind of like taboo thing. And you do retired and I was like, I really love to stay. I love doing what I do, and we all do for our country, and it gives us purpose. And whenever I passed that on to my son, I kind of explained that to him a little bit, and he loved it too, and he put it on his kit, and he went did his job. And he redeployed, and I was like, I want my flag back. And,
after all those wonderful words.
That's right. But I was like...
that's hilarious.
For me, it was kind of like passing it... I don't know, it had just some significant, like I was hopefully passing a little bit of knowledge or wealth to him, protection.
So your son didn't go, what the...
No, he knew he's giving it back.
Yeah.
But, so he gave it back to me, and that was my last deployment because, like I said, I'm going to leave a regiment soon, and that was it. So I was going to retire the flag and put it in my own shadow box and put whatever plate on it and hang it on my man wall someday when I have a house. And well, I have a house. I'm in an apartment, but when I have a house. I'm not currently homeless.
Close, but
yeah. But and he was talking about Jackson has to go through SEER school before he can go, fly over across the pond and do stuff because the way the Air Force, does things. And I was like, man, the families mean so much to me. Dave's family means so much to me, and so does Jackson and everybody involved. And I was like, hey, I want to give Jackson my flag that I've carried and my son carried, and I thought it was I was going to retire it, if you will, and when I do, but what better way to honor a family that's done so much for me by giving them something that means so much to me personally, and I put so much of my life into, and why I do what I do, and I could never repay them for what they've done for me, so I want to give that significance to them. So I was able to go up there a couple of weeks ago and give Jackson that flag and tell him what it meant to me for him to carry it across the pond a few times, and I knew he would do it honor and justice because that's why he's doing what he's doing, and I appreciate him and him carrying the torch and the example that his dad set for him to continue to serve our great nation. So that was pretty awesome to do.
No, I'm sure that meant a lot to him.
Oh my gosh, it meant as much to me and Tara, my wife, his sister Gracie, and we had a few friends over at the house, and they didn't know what to expect because we didn't know what to expect really. And Jason pulls the flag out and gives it to him, and it was very emotional. And I don't know what to say sometimes because I'm so humbled. We live in the greatest country in the world, and as an entrepreneur, I graduated high school with a 4th grade reading level. I'm not the smartest guy in the bunch, but this country gave me an opportunity, and I'm forever grateful. I've spent probably most of my adult life trying to find a way to give back and say thanks. And I think there's a couple of ways that we can do that. Is one, reach out and say thanks. The other thing is do something with it.
Yeah.
And so, when I'm having a pity party or myself, I think, there's an amazing price that was paid for me to get up this morning and be able to go get to the plate, swing the bat, and own my own business. And I'm not good at much. I say all the time, if it took 10 things to be successful in business, I'm probably only good at 1 or 2, and I have to surround myself with everybody else on the team, that's better than I am. But I think about Jason, I think about my son, I think about my dad and my forefathers, all my friends that got to go and serve. And, I don't really have the right to lay around and be lazy and be greedy. I need to go out and do something. And for me, it was just go out and open a business. We live in the greatest country in the world to be able to do that. And, whether it's pressure washing or cutting grass, or you want to go own a high complexity molecular lab or a medical facility, hair salons, you can do it all, So thank you, Jason. I appreciate that.
I want to get into how the two of you met. So, you are an entrepreneur, and obviously there's been a major impact on what his family has done in your life, Jason. But I mean, we did talk a lot about, in this podcast, it is called Mentorship Military because you do want to try to find, through our shows, we're hoping that the stories of our guests help mentor, coach, help assist, whatever, either the individual listener or it makes an impact where they take an action and do something. That's kind of how we wanted to try to set it up. And obviously there's been that type of impact that's occurred here. Whether or not you go through military service, to me, it doesn't matter. You serve in different capacities. We all do that. And the fact that you're even using terms like giving back, I mean, that's the whole reason why we started the podcast, is to give back, to do that. And you have found a way to give back and everything that you've learned and created. So tell us how that connection even came about.
Yeah. So I used to try to be a fighter. I wasn't very good. I've had my ass whipped a lot, but I enjoyed doing it. I don't know. I'm a glutton for punishment, so I'm like, here's my face, punch it, I guess. But I definitely have a punch me face. I don't know why people want to fight me, but back in the day they used to want to. So I tried to, and I used to have a lot of anger, and issues, and I didn't really have an outlet to deal with that. So I started, doing MMA, and it kept me out of trouble.
I did not know that about you.
Yeah, and Paul likes to. I have a black belt in Shotokan karate, and I did a lot of boxing. That was kind of my platform: boxing, kickboxing, karate type platform. And when I first got to regiment, and I had been fighting before I got to regiment, and everybody in regiment if you're E6 and below, back then, like, it was all about rolling. Let's go outside and roll. And I'd be like, okay, but I didn't ever tell anybody, that I was like a ton of boxing matches, and I've been doing a lot of jiu-jitsu for the last 3 years, probably prior to that, and I would take them outside and tap them out, and they'd be like, "What the hell?" So Paul was like, "What are you, like a fucking ninja or something?" It's like, he'd be like, and then I was like, "Well, I got a black belt in karate," and that's where "sweep the leg" come from. So and Legford, so that was Paul's nickname for me. I love you, Paul. But he would, every time he'd see me, be like, "Hey, Legford this, hey, Legford that." So literally for like 4 years, that was my nickname, Legford.
I think you now amassed 3 nicknames that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I definitely.
Are there others here?
I probably have, I don't know, 10. I probably have some nicknames that can't be called on the radio. But, I don't know. None of that ever bothered me. Like, I would be like, all right, dude, if that's what you recognize it. As long as we can be friends, I don't care, and you call me what you want, dude. But, it was fun, and I built a bond with those guys out of it. But then one of a great ranger, Ben Durham, he used to be our retention NCO. He jumped into one of the theaters and broke both his ankles, and he ended up staying in the regiment actually and retired. But he was a fighter and a large, but not real tall, large, but like short, large man that could hit like a train. And when I found out that we had a little fight club down there in the fight gym at work, I would go down there and him and I would spar and we'd work out and we'd do jiu-jitsu and so on. And then Grant Shannon, him and Durham were really good friends. So I met Shannon. That's a longer story, but I met Shannon when I was in RIP, and he was a RIP cadre, and we hated. And I say we, like everybody in the RIP class hated Shannon because he was a very angry little man, about 5'6", 5'7", 160 pounds of just anger, and but he was a great ranger. You know what I mean? Like he could ranger the shit out of it, but he earned his job at RIP every day as an instructor. And back then it was just pain and repetition. If you could hang in there for however long, 4 weeks, you're good. But that's where I first met Shannon. And when I donned my tambourine and graduated, I was like, I hope I never see that little man again. But fortunately for me, I did. Through Durham, and me and Shannon got back together, and when we started rolling together and fighting together, like we built a bond that was inseparable. And Durham and got linked in with Dave because he owned Strike Hard Productions, and he got Shannon in a couple fights, and we come up and worked Shannon's corner, and that's where we first met Dave about 11 years ago, probably now. And then I started fighting for Dave and had a few fights, and we kept in touch over the years. And I would come up and watch fights, or he'd be like, "Hey, you got any guys? You want to bring your guys up?" And he would, he's like, "However many guys you want," and he would bring us all up. Whether it be 6 or 16 guys, we'd get and treated as at a 2,000 people event, like rolling the red carpet out, and staying at nice. All the motels were paid for, and we would get in the ring with the number one heavyweight contender at UFC, and just the whole, he literally, I would say, made, but when he'd get in the ring and he'd talk about us, and he would, tell the people like we were celebrities there, and just like he just showered us with that, and it was it felt good. You're like, I don't know what to feel right now, but when we I knew this is going to be the hard part, so I'll probably get emotional just to say that out loud here, but so we stayed in touch, and we lost Shannon to suicide, and that's why we talk a lot about this show about mental health and stuff, and getting help, and because it's a big part of our life, and how you can't get help, you don't get help, you're gonna end up like unfortunately Shannon, and so. Shannon, took his own life, and that was like a changing point in Dave and my life, and he reached out to me, and he's like, I love you, brother. I'll always be there for you, and all the hard stuff I went through, and I text him and call him, and then he kept in touch, and he would bring our guys back up. And when I was a platoon sergeant, he brought a squad plus up, and put the guys in the ring and fed them, and just always being there for all of us, and he everybody that knows Dave, and then all of Dave's friends are exactly like that too. And it goes to about surrounding yourself with like-minded people that care and support, and any of them, any of the people that Dave would introduce you to would do the exact same thing as Dave, and that's the kind of people they are. So, this is going to be the hard part, but
Take your time.
so
We're in no rush here.
So, I'm being humble because I want other people to get help too and find their Dave and their elder family. So I was going through a really hard time about 3 or 4 years ago, and I sitting on the back of the tailgate of my truck. I'd drink a bunch of liquor and alcohol, and I was in that dark place, and at that time, you don't see anything, you don't see tunnels, you don't see people, you don't see problems. You don't see purpose, and God damn it. I put a gun in my mouth, and I was literally squeezing the trigger, and my fucking phone went off, and I was ounces away from it going off. And
All right, man.
I looked down at my phone and it said Dave Elder on it. And I opened it. I said, it's 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night. It's like, hey, brother, thinking about you. I just want to say I love you. And people don't believe there's something higher than us out there. They're crazy. Things happen for a reason. There's a reason why that phone went off, or the trigger did. And I talked to Dave for a couple hours on the phone, and
What was it that caused you to pick up the phone and call?
I'm a Christian, and I don't know why I picked up the phone to call that time.
Yeah.
But when we go back to Grant, I was communicating with Grant right up to the point that he committed suicide. It gets me choked up hearing the story because we've only talked about this one time, but I knew Grant was going through a hard time, and maybe there were times that I should have picked up the phone and called Grant, and I didn't. And when that happened, I said, it'll never happen on my watch again. So I knew Jason was struggling, and I was getting ready to go to bed, and I said, I'm going to check on him.
Just out of the blue, nothing, yeah.
I didn't know anything. I just, I wasn't going to let those moments pass again. And so I just called him, and I didn't know. So, I just think that, God had another purpose for Jason. And he says all the time, you saved my life. And I didn't do anything. I just picked up the phone, called. I didn't even know anything was going on.
Right.
I don't feel like I deserve any credit for that. But my family loves Jason. We love all our military guys. And I'm just grateful, very humbled. And I would do anything in the world for any of them that I can do, I'm just very humbled. We love you, Jason.
yeah, thanks, Dave.
When you got that call, it was at that moment you're sharing that, you now had to keep composure at a time which pretty tough for you.
Yeah, I drowned. I don't remember a lot of the call. I was really drunk, and I'm sure it was just, Dave telling me my self-worth and my family.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
and it's not an unusual story in some regards, because I've heard this story by others where it was a very similar thing. It was somebody sitting in the car about ready to pull the trigger, and the phone rings, and it's someone asking, "You coming down for dinner?" Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll be right there. Put the gun away. I know at least 2 other cases that were like that, where for whatever reason, that other person at that moment made a decision. And it's not like, we can't beat ourselves up for those times where we didn't do that, but the impact that made at that moment when that phone rings, and you got to get composure and you got to snap back into it. There's somebody on that line that means a lot to you that's calling, and you picked up the phone. That's the difference. You didn't look at that and go, all right, I'm not answering that right now. It's not what I want.
And at that moment, it was about what Dave meant to me, and I've almost snapped back into reality type thing. And I do say Dave saved my life. I know God that had the hand in it, and that's exactly why Dave called me, and at that exact moment, there's no other explanation. And nothing that could explain it. But what it did for me was, it took me a couple of years, but with Dave, and then came Marcus, our other buddy, and then Havoc, and Dave made that happen, and Havoc's my best friend. Obviously, he goes everywhere with me, and he's literally, and that gave me I had my kids and my family, but I was being selfish at the time, and I thought that, I was a shitty person and a shitty husband and, a worthless dad. And my kids didn't have all these things, or my wife wasn't this way, and all that, compounding, and I was like, my, fucking childhood, was okay at times, and but my deployments were horrible at times, all those compounding things, just, I was like, fucking, I'm out, and I'm really, over the last, definitely the last year and a half now, I've done a lot of, first off, I ended up passing out in my truck, in the back of the tailgate of the truck, and I wake up the next morning to Dave, several missed calls, and I called him back, and we talked for another several hours, and then, the Havoc ball happened literally, when Dave wants something to happen, it happens. And
So that morning and stuff, when you had called periodically, and then he called you back and everything. How long was it from that point before you knew this story?
Well, I never really knew the full story until probably a month ago.
And we're talking how many years ago?
3.
At least 3, yeah.
Yeah, so 3 years passed, and you never knew the impact of that call.
I didn't know the impact of that call. No. I knew the next day. I knew he was struggling.
Yeah.
And then, as soon as I woke up, I started calling Jason, hey, wake up, buddy, where you at? And, he had lost his dog. And in conversation, he said he needed a dog. And so, by God, I was getting him a dog today. And so I started calling around, and there were some programs out there that guys had dogs, you know, for service dogs. And Jason didn't need a poodle. Nothing wrong with a poodle, but I mean, he's a warrior. He needed a Belgian, he needed a Mao. And So I started looking around, and I found a program, and they called and they said, hey, we think we can get him a dog. I said, whatever it costs, I'll get the money. The guy calls me back, and he says, man, I want to help him. Everything would be great, but we don't have any dogs available. So that's not going to work. I need a dog today. He goes, well, I know this one guy. His name is Marcus, and he said he trains dogs, and they're real high-end dogs, but I don't know if he would have any to, for something like this. I said, well, give me his number. So I called him up, and I tell him Jason's story, and he's got an incredible story. He'd basically given up everything to raise these dogs.
Wow.
Bought himself a farm, and it had a single-wide trailer on it, and he made it the dog kennel and lived in a travel trailer. And he had 3 adult dogs
That's crazy.
to sell for that year.
Yeah.
And these dogs are about $50,000 a piece.
Holy cow.
So he only had 3. So he had a potential income of $150,000 that year. Potential. And his wife and kids are in a travel trailer, and the dogs are in the single-wide trailer. And so I called this guy, don't know him from anything, and I tell him Jason's story. I tell him we need a dog today. Jason is in a real bad place, and he said, can you have Jason call me? He didn't give me a yes or no or anything. All I know is he's got a $50,000 dog. And I said, whatever it takes, I'll get the dog. I didn't really have $50,000 to put in a dog,
right?
But we were going to do it.
Yeah,
find a way. And so he got Jason's number, and he called Jason, and they have a conversation. And he calls me back, and he said, David, I don't know you. I really don't know Jason, but Jason's story, who he is. He said, I never got to serve in the military. He said, I'm going to give Jason one of my dogs.
Wow.
I said, well,
so he's never served in the military or anything. Why is he raising the dogs? What made him go this direction?
He's a dog trainer.
He's a dog trainer.
He is a God-given gift. He is like the dog whisperer.
Okay.
He is amazing.
He loves the military too, and like there's a lot of people out there that are like that. I guess just want to give back.
Well, again, this kind of goes into whether you believe in God or whatever. There has to be a higher being because of the way this thing is lining up. So anyway, keep telling your story. I'm sorry.
It's amazing because you really think of this man is trying to provide for his family, and he's promised his wife and his kids, and they're living in a pull-behind travel trailer with 5 people in that travel trailer. And he's put everything he has into these dogs. A week prior to this, there was a lady that came to purchase one of the dogs for $50,000. And during her introduction, he decided that she didn't have the character that she needed to have to handle a dog like Havoc.
Yeah. I mean, Belgians are not easy to...
No, and they're
pretty wound up.
Fully trained security dogs. They do it all. And he had the maturity to step away from the sale of the dog. And so he comes in and he tells his wife, I'm not selling her the dog. She came down, spent 2 days with him, cash money, buy the dog. I'm not selling the dog. And they almost had a divorce over it.
Wow, I can only imagine.
I can only imagine what that was like.
Yeah.
Well, the next week I call. And I say, hey, I've got this guy, he's in bad shape. He needs a dog. He talks to Jason, asks Jason to come down to his facility. He calls me right back on the phone. He said, look, I don't know why. He said, Lord just put it on my heart. I'm giving Jason this dog. And he said, mister, if you want to pay me something for the dog, that's fine, but you don't have to pay me a dime. I'm giving him the dog. So how would you like to have that conversation when he got back to his family to say, I just gave 1/3 of our income away. I don't know why, but I just feel led like I'm supposed to do that.
Yeah, so there's one thing to have to explain to your wife that you've just turned down somebody who was willing to give you $50,000 for a dog, but then a week later to turn right back in and go, and by the way, we're going to, like you said, lose 1/3 of our income here, potential income for the year, just because I felt that that's the right thing to do.
That's right. So I knew like God was working in the situation. Jason takes off. He goes down there, falls in love. He actually told him, if I'm telling the story right, take your pick of any of these dogs.
So they were all trained and ready at that point.
They were all fully ready. And he allowed the dogs, Jason just said, let the dogs pick me. And so Havoc came out, really picked Jason.
Marcus is like, man, I've never seen a dog. None of my dogs, the dogs are trained not to let you touch them, And like I said, when Havoc's got his vest off, like, he does.
Yeah, he's just an awesome dog.
Yeah, when he's got his vest on, he knows
He's working.
and he won't let you pet him, and he'll like, I want to be petted, but I know I shouldn't.
Yeah.
And they're trained that way, and he's really a great dog, and Mark's an amazing, God-gifted talent in training dogs. But yeah, Havoc, like, he literally came out and walked in a couple circles and walked literally right over to me. And Mark was like, I've been doing this for years and that's never happened. And he's like, well, see if he'll walk with you and all this stuff. And he stuck right beside me. And it was literally like we walked and he was like looking up at me, and I'd stop, he'd stop, and I'd pet him and love on him, and then we'd start again. And Marcus would call him, and he would look at Marcus like, oh, no. And he's like, when I call my dogs, they come. And he would have to call him a couple of times to get him to come away from me.
Wow. For a first meeting.
Very first, at like 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And Marcus never lets his dogs go home with anybody usually the first 4 days. And Havoc went back to the motel with me that night.
That's incredible.
I spent the rest of the weekend there, just working with him and doing.
I was going to say, so did you have to go through some kind of formal training yourself to understand at least the limited amount of commands? And
I unfortunately had a dog that had the same commands that got hit by a car, and my ex-wife let him out, and he didn't follow her in the house, and when she shut the door, I guess she forgot about him. I don't know, but no malicious intent. But he just ran off. He didn't have the maturity that Havoc does. And he ran down the road, our driveway, and ran out in the road and got hit by a car. So that was horrible. But I'd already known quite a bit of that, and then around work, our dogs are the same, and they use the same commands, and I'd been around that for years. And then so it was more like just solidifying that bond between Havoc and I before I left Marcus's, but he was my dog after 5 minutes of the first night.
what made you decide that the dog is is it a companion, or what was it that made you go that direction? People don't always go that, to that direction.
I knew that Jason had a dog prior that had gotten killed, and he had a lot of success with that dog. And I just thought that, if we could put another warrior dog with a warrior spirit like Jason, that would be challenging, like the Belgian Mal is, and it takes a lot of attention. He would run with Jason. I was like, there's your companion. You won't let the dog down. And I really felt like Jason took on the challenge to, I'm not going to let the dog down. and Marcus has done a great job and has stayed in our lives. We're best friends, and we communicate every morning. We have a little, Jason started a little men's group that we just text every morning, a Bible verse and how it can be applied in your life, and it opens up communication between all of us. There's 7, 8 guys on this, and we've been doing it now for 3 years. And but there were a couple of men that pitched in with me when I told them the story and helped me get Marcus some money. And we didn't pay anywhere near the $50,000 mark, but we wanted to make sure that he knew that we were trying to cover him, and thank him. And in return, I've done my best to promote him. It's Limitless Canines. You can look him up on YouTube, and I've sold several dogs for him. And I have one now.
Are you really?
I do. 9 months old. His name is Argos, and so I feel like I'm part of the club a little bit.
Absolutely. You're definitely that. So that story obviously means a lot to me, right? And I wanted to make sure that I was, the show is, we mentor for military, right? But and we talk a lot about mental health and stuff, but at the same time, the military needs mentors, and having Dave as that, he has nothing to do with the military. I mean, as far as like structure and all that, and anything going on, doesn't care what rank you are, any of that. None of that matters. And I wasn't. He doesn't care. His family and friends, they didn't care like whether what I wore on my chest or the things I'd done. And thank God every day that I found a mentor like him and his family in my life, and the men that I've been introduced to since then. And I spent 3 years, kind of, for lack of better terms, unfuck myself. And it took a long time, and unfortunately, I ended up, several years, year and almost 3 years now, but getting divorced, and I haven't done everything right since then, but I've definitely got my mantra, better every day, and I went to counseling. I still do counseling. I do self-help. I went like 15 months with no social media, to do the hard things, like find me, and regardless whether you've been in the military or whatever you're doing, like everybody has a darkness, from something, PTSD from something. Unfortunately, they've had to do it. And I don't mean everybody, but some people's had a great life. But the ones that do, it isn't gauged by what you've seen in combat. It's gauged by how you react that as a person, and how you, a small car crash might be nothing to me, but it might ruin your entire life. So I used to judge, and I used to, if you weren't, a hard ass or like me, like I was like, I don't need you, and that's the wrong thought process, and that doesn't develop anybody. And I took it on the chin for what people around me and meant to me, and I had to find myself for my kids, and since that night, I got a grandson now. I put a scroll on my son. I've seen graduate high school. Like, none of that would ever happen, so no matter who you are in life, whether you're a fucking Army Ranger or the Walmart greeter, you got your own problems, but there are people out there that love and care about you, that want to see you do better, and would literally do anything for you to do that. And I was selfish, I thought that my problems were the only ones that mattered, and that nobody else gave a shit, and everybody around me would be better off without me.
Well, you're not at that time frame, though. You're not thinking about secondary effects.
No.
You're really not even thinking about yourself, but you're certainly not thinking about secondary effects and, secondary post-traumatic stress that you're going to leave behind, in effect. And I've seen, guys talk about post-traumatic stress and everything else, and there's been some guys that even gone on the circuit and actually gone around and talked about it, yet then I've seen some take their life as well afterwards. But so it happens. We're not thinking about that loved one, that child, that spouse, or whomever, friends or whatever, they're going to be impacted by that decision, that single decision alone. And maybe if you could catch that glimpse in that moment, or open that doorway where you can have that conversation with that individual, and you can get inside that soul to explain the importance of that, and that you don't want to do that. You know the effects of post-traumatic stress. The last thing you want to do is give that to a loved one.
Absolutely. And for me, you know, I since that time, I try to do better, and hopefully when I retire, like can dedicate more of my time in life to helping people with PTSD and soldiers and rangers and just, you know, individuals. But I still go to counseling, like I said, but I tell people my story. You know, it's obviously not easy for me to sit here and be emotional in front of thousands of people are going to listen to this show, but if that saves one person's life, hell yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah.
And so I talk to people about it openly. I used to be like prideful and boastful, and I was like, man, I'm too hard for that. You know, that's bullshit. And no, that is bullshit.
Yeah.
Know? And
but you were also willing, whether it was organic or something else, you had to be somewhat willing to self-reflect and change, and at the same time frame you recognize somebody that could help you go through that process and cross over the other side and be a mentor. And let's face it, you know, in mentoring, I'm not a big fan of programs where they assign you a mentor, because it's not always effective as it is if it comes out very naturally and you find somebody. A mentor is meant to be there to cause you to think, ask you a question, give you a thought, and then allow you to process. Not coach, which means I'm going to teach you how to do it. That's a very different thing from mentoring. And so that's why it's so challenging or difficult, because not every mentor is designed to be, you know, with every person. You got to find the right type of mentor. But you must have been willing and open to be mentored, and then that's where you realize that you got somebody sitting right here that
absolutely
is willing to do that.
Dave and I have had hundreds and hundreds of conversations about, you know, where he's been and things he's done, and his feelings, and, you know, our feelings, and those type of things, and what makes him tick, you know, and how he, you know, found that he was, you know, humble to me and exposed those things that were to me, and it just, to me, it was like, if this man is this successful, you know, and this amazing family, and, you know, one thing about, and this is what I was talking about, like, never forgetting where you come from, right? Like, and that's definitely what Dave and all of his friends are. That's what they do. They never forget where they come from, because, you know, sometimes in the military, you know, like we have a decent salary, if you will, once you get to be an EA, maybe, but they never judge you on any of those things, and it never matters, you know. But sometimes we don't feel like we're at that level, right? Because you know, regardless whether you want to or not, society sets standards.
Yeah.
You know, here's where this person is because they make this much money, or here's where this person is because they're this prestigious, and here's where this people is, and society set that. You know, and, you know, over years, people have just evolved to going, that's kind of where your stature is in life, and that's where you're at, right? So me coming, you know, from my background, and then my, you know, big little low paycheck in the Army, you know, like I always felt like this is where I fit in, right here on these standards, because society said that. And Dave was like, hell no, you know. Actually, the way this works is, here's where all of you are, right, in the status, and here's where all of we are, and that's how it should be, you know. And I still don't feel that way, but I feel and understand it more about how how it works and all it links together. And whenever people don't kind of understand that they feel like, you know, and definitely in the Army, or in any military, but you feel like you're, you know, kind of beneath people, you know. And I've been in the Army 17 years, and people are like, "Oh, you're in the military." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm in the military. Just in the military. That's fine." You know what I mean? But like derogatory about it. Now, I've had people say stupid shit. Now, but I don't care. I fight for them just the same as I fight for everybody else, and so does all the people that are in the Army. But I did. I found that in Dave, and he helped me. Dave.
Well, I told Jason from day one, he said, "Man," he said, "I appreciate the way you always show the military respect." I said, "Jason, all my friends do that, you know." And he's like, "Yeah, right, whatever." And so I remind him every time he meets a new friend that he goes, "Man, that's a great guy. How did you meet him?" I said, "I told you that all my friends feel that way." So, yeah, we're all huge supporters of the military and very grateful for what they do for us.
Well, and I think that it's important to recognize, because something that we do in the military, not everybody, because I don't want to peanut butter it, but there's a good bit of us that at some point of our career, we start thinking of us and them being people who don't serve, from those of us who do serve. And they don't understand me, or, you know, whatever the case may be. And a lot of it's ourselves, if we try to bridge that divide a little bit more, we recognize we have more common ground than we do things apart. But we tend to not think about it that way. And yet, you know, instead of finding a mentor that of somebody that was a struggling, you know, E8, a sergeant major, or an officer or something like that, somebody who served, who actually went through some of the same challenges and maybe has come out the other side and can help you through that as a mentor, you just recognize the people in your circle.
Purity, like, you know, genuine people, and you feel that, you know what I mean? You're like, this is like a genuine ass person.
You weren't looking for a criteria sheet that said, "Oh yeah, checks that block. Yep, checks that block."
I have people tell me, and I've done plenty of counseling, so I feel like I have a pretty robust resume to talk on. So people tell me all the time, like, "Nah, I ain't gonna talk to that. You know, that's countless stupid. You know, what the hell do they know? You know, they don't know how. You know, they don't understand what I've done or been through." And when I say that, like, it not always. Everybody always relates it back to, like, "Oh, these people are war-torn people," and it's not always about that, right? And most often or not, probably not about that. But they're always. I'm not talking in person. I'm not talking to that person, but. A counseling is a relationship, you know. When you find a counselor, and I've DX'd many of counselors, you know, got rid of them. Like, man, you know what? I just don't connect with that counselor. Man, I pick up the phone, call Military One Source again, and be like, "Didn't like that one. Give me another list." You know, until I found Monica, my Dr. Sparks. She's badass, and until I found her, I cut that cord, and I was like, pick up the phone. I was like, that one didn't work. And until you find that relationship, because that's what it is. And it's not about, like, I'm not looking for a counselor or somebody that's done exactly what I do and how they deal with it. I wanted to look for somebody who just knew how to give me techniques to cope with it.
Well, he was already a friend.
No, I was talking about.
Right? I mean,
yeah, Dave. But I'm talking about, like, I was talking about going to counseling. Like,
right.
I was saying, like, people go to their counselors to find and they say, "I don't go to counseling because I don't want to do. They don't know, or they don't do this, right?" But when I found Monica, my counselor, I don't judge her in the fact that she never, you know, done anything, or, you know, from childhood to war like mine. I just wanted to feel that relationship whenever I sat down and talked to them, feel comfortable, you know, and felt like I wasn't being judged, you know, like Dave and them, like, you're not being judged. They just want to talk to you and, like, help you and just, you know, give you techniques and that what they got through their hard parts in life. And at the end of the day, you know, like Dr. Sparks, 15 years of school, like, you learned something in the technique world, you know, like, it's probably working. So I tell people all the time, like, well, I was like, that's a stupid thing to say, man. Don't say they won't understand, because you don't need them to understand your exact situation. You need them to understand you and how to help you, and they know how to help you. So that vulnerability. I talked to Dave before my last deployment, and I dropped off all my social media, and my buddy Rick gave me a couple hard answers and hard questions, and Dave was like, "Here's some things to think about." And I spent the last year digging deep, and finding the me and the why, because the why matters. I say that all the time, and my purpose, and Dave has been, I struggled for retirement, and I struggled on what I'm going to do, and Dave has, after I come back and after I went through some more stuff, Dave helped me find that purpose, and by introducing me to the other people, and let me see that there's life after the military, and Army and military people, they don't, and I definitely didn't, and I still kind of gray area, but he's getting me through it. Understand your worth and just your knowledge that you already know and do every day in the Army, and Dave has opened roads and pathways for me to kind of see that and where I want to take my future. So,
I mean, for you, was he's laying it out as if you already had this plan and roadmap of how you were going to help Jason. It was all organic and all natural, right?
100%. Yeah. We just started out as friends. I respected him as a fighter, and I booked him. And I would come down and see the combatives group down here, and I'd book them as fighters.
Yeah.
Had no real intention other than, remember I said I was probably only good at two things. One of them is loving people, and the second one is building relationships. And so I just organically, I loved the military. I appreciated everything they did, and I built relationships. And Jason responded, and we just struck up a friendship. And so that's kind of how that all started. And then just over the last year, when Jason started talking about, I was thinking about getting retiring, but I don't know what I would do, and just being a friend, I said, Jason, my God, you got the greatest skills in the world. I mean, you lead 218 men. I don't have a business that has 218 employees, and the education that you have to lead, and what the military has done to educate you, to teach you how to lead men, is very valuable in business.
Yep.
These are all qualities that I wish I had. And so Jason's like, I don't know if I have these qualities. And I'm like, get over yourself right now. I love it. You're an idiot. Everybody I know would love to have you come in and create systems. I said, you get 30 men to jump out of a 47 in the middle of the night in hostile territory, and you set up the entire, the programs, and you work on the plans, and you go out and execute the plans, and these guys believe in you. I said, business is no different. I said, we need exactly what you have. And so somewhere deep inside, I guess it's, and when I'm coaching him on who he really is, it dawns on me that, my God, I need a Jason. I need a Jason in my business.
Yeah.
So then I said, why don't you come up here and look at my business and tell me what I'm doing wrong? And, it's financially successful, but it's a little cluster. And I realized after talking with Jason, and he rides around kind of what I've been proud of for 20 years, and he's like, oh my God, Dave, yes, this is a mess. We got to clean this up. You're going to have a heart attack, buddy. And he starts talking to me about systems and creating roadmaps and business plans. And I'm like, I'm supposed to be the professional.
I love it.
I looked at him and I said, Jason, I said, listen at you. I mean, I'm sitting in the front seat, and I said, you're the guy that was asking me what your self-worth was, and now you're coaching me on business and systems. And I said, this is what you're going to do, buddy. And he's like, yeah, I want to do it. So then within a week or so, he sends me his business plan, what he wants to do, and how he sees the value. And he starts sending me names of people that are, phenomenal individuals that he worked with, that their resume is sickening. Like, I don't get to interview people like that, And so out of that strikes a lot of confidence now with Jason and who he is and what he has to offer. But not only that, as much of a patriot as I've always been, and the love that I have for the military, and I'm so appreciative, I never really thought about seeking out the highest level of military to come and help me in my business or help other entrepreneurs in their business. There is a tremendous need for the education and the leadership that the military has that the business sector needs.
Absolutely. And I think that most of the time, and I'm not going to try to knock the private sector on this a whole lot, but there are military-friendly businesses, which really in some cases may mean that they're targeting individuals for specific few jobs within their company that they think are entry points based on what their knowledge is of the military, and they haven't opened up their mind to what it really could be. And nor is there are some programs out there, I know, within the soft community, but not within all conventional military, where they're really trying to take an individual, their skill sets, like what you talked about, and said, let me show you how you can apply that and add value back to a company. Fortunately, there is a program that's out there that the military just we talked about it recently on a couple episodes, where you can do a little bit of an internship, and get paid by the military to come and work for someone like yourself. That you get free help now for 6 months, and they can learn the ropes of a business, what it takes, and everything else, while you're getting free help. That is a person who is of a high caliber, is a sponge, willing to learn, you're willing to teach them, and that type of stuff. And if we can get that going a lot more, I think we're going to bridge this divide a whole lot better. But you're going to also start recognizing the quality of the product that's available that you didn't realize that was out there.
That's what's amazing. The quality of the product that's out there.
Yeah.
I've interviewed, I guess maybe three guys that work with Jason. They're at another level. Actually, after the first night, I had to go write down some questions so I at least sounded intelligent. These are the smartest people I've ever dealt with in my life. And I go back to work, and I love my staff, but it's not at the same level. I love my staff, but they're not at the same level as these guys that Jason's introduced me to. And so I just feel like a knucklehead for not really knowing that before.
Yeah. Well, it's not necessarily your fault. I just don't think we do a very good job of advertising it. And there's a focus that we tend to talk about soft skills. Oh, you come into the private sector with a lot of opportunities. Look at all these soft skills that you have and everything. But there are real hard skills and maybe I'll use it again, wisdom, knowledge that comes from years of experience that you're also just, you can't overlook. It's, like you said, all of those things that he has accomplished. I've sat down and tried to help some people that are, kind of within my circle, or people who know me, who have provided their resumes. They're getting out and they're saying, hey, Robert, I want you to take a look at it. And they've gone through the, let's say, the Army's Transition Assistance Program, and the resume looks like something that basically somebody who's getting out of high school, that's the way they've been asked to format it in a one-page resume. Dude, you just spent 8 years, 10 years, 12 years doing something, and you're trying to fit it in one page. Forget this whole one-page stuff out there. For anybody who's listening, I will look at a resume as a hiring manager, and I literally take about 10, 15 seconds to look at a resume. I'll look at how well it's structured and everything else, sure. But what I want to know is, do you have enough meat on the bone there that I'm going to want to spend more than my first 10 or 15 seconds looking at it? And when you attract me and you got the hook, and I look inside that resume, if there's enough stuff that where you've described yourself well enough that I want to pick up the phone and call you, because it's your first impression. And so we always talk about you only get one shot of making a good first impression. So, well, this is your first impression. If it's one page, and it's set up with just a couple sentences on it. I don't know anything about you, and I'm taking a whole lot of risk in bringing you into my business, right? So I think we could do a lot better in educating individuals who might be interested that I think we're not doing as much of a service on right now, and in helping them prepare for that transition. And they don't know any different, because this is, they're learning how to pack a ruck. They're learning how to, get ready for the next mission and everything else. And now all of a sudden their next mission is making that transition and going out. But I think this is where we could bridge a lot of that divide. Project management is a great opportunity. I know it's kind of an overkill thing, but skills that these individuals are bringing in terms of project management, like you're describing of Jason, being able to prepare, knowing what goes into all those things, create an operation order, you know everything that has to go in to make that as successful, building your contingencies, 2 is 1, all those types of things that are overlooked a lot of times by even people in the private sector. And certainly as someone, as an entrepreneur, it's even more challenging because you don't always have the mentoring and the guidance and everything to build a business. You go out there and it's trial and error.
Absolutely. My dad died when I was 24 years old, and so I was kind of on my own after that. And like I said, I had dyslexia. The only thing I was ever good at when in high school was throwing a baseball. I was left-handed. And I had a brain surgery and lost the feeling on the left side of my face, my arms. I couldn't feel my hand anymore, so baseball was over for me. So I had no idea what I was going to do. All I knew is that I would outwork anybody else. And so I started a pressure washing business in 1988. I was a paramedic on an ambulance, worked 24 on, 48 off, and that lasted for just a few months. And I started my own business, and I had mentors along the way. In brick mason, I had a guy named Bruce Jones that really took me under his wing, and he came to my house and he said, "Hey, do you know how to clean masonry?" And I said, "No, I don't know." He said, "Well, we're going to learn together. Come on." And the first job I did was a high school that was being built in our community. And so I was scared to death. It was this big project. And so one thing kind of led to another, and I had mentors that just helped me along the way. And the only thing I could do was build relationships and out-hustle everybody that was in the field, and it worked.
Good foundational pieces right there.
Yeah, it worked. So when I get around Jason's guys that actually have skill sets, I know they're right. I just didn't know a name for it. I didn't know. I know we need to build these systems this way because I know it because I had to go learn it the hard way. And I don't know the proper educated names for each one of these. But as Jason started talking, I'm like, you got names for everything that I know in my heart. That's how I operate. And then you introduce me to guys that are college educated, West Point graduates, these guys with 20-pound brains.
Yeah. And
I'm sitting communicating with them, and it's just amazing. I would love to become a huge advocate for these military soldiers that are wanting to leave the military and get into the private sector, because if I can go do it and be successful, and they get to know me, they're going to know that they can be successful.
Yeah.
It doesn't take that much.
Well, there are quite a few individuals who are in the service that start entrepreneurial opportunities while they're still in. And I think they're always looking for people like yourself who've been successful. What is the criteria to success? And I know there's books that are out there written and such, but sometimes it's just trial and error. It's going out there, and if at first you don't succeed, try again. Or, you gotta kind of massage your business plan as to how you're moving through this thing, because that's not working due to this. And if you just make some small tweaks, then you're going to be just fine. Or it's just not for you. You need to drop that and go a different direction. But the reason why, I don't know what the statistics are about entrepreneurship, but the reason why that statistic is so high for failure is because of all those roadblocks and challenges and things that typically people don't think about along the way, and they sink everything they've got into that opportunity or not. because that could also be a failure. And it just doesn't pan out because they didn't do all that prior planning. And had they not made those poor decisions or whatever, then they'd be a whole lot better off, and their business would be successful. But I like that, again, what you described earlier, Jason, was built off of just initially a friendship foundation.
Right. Me and Dave literally never talked business until
you brought it up that you're wanting to go out.
Maybe. I mean, we didn't ever start talking like hard, like business, like, hey, I'm going to come work for you, until maybe like 3 months ago, maybe. Mm-hmm. But I just used him as a mentor to give me, like his professional guidance and how he's been successful, to make my decision on, getting out or staying in. And, like I said, I use him as a mentor and a brother to kind of give me that, where do I find my value? Because I know where I find my value now as a person. And I spent, a solid year, like finding that, and I know what I want in life, and I knew that I want, for the last 17 years, I knew I wanted to be an Army Ranger, and I wanted to do this, and that. But that's a thing, that's not a me.
Right.
And I spent 17 years being a thing, but now I spent the last year finding the me, and I know the me now, and I owe Dave and his family that for helping guide that ship and the thought process. And I've never been more confident about my future than I am now, and what I want as a person in life, like not things, money, and that's just going to come and go. And but one day at the 11th hour, like none of that's going to matter, So as long as I can be a good person, that's I've been a pretty shitty person in a lot of times and frames in my life, and admittedly so. And I've probably ruined relationships that maybe would have panned out in another direction. And I've been mean, rude, or ugly to people that I probably didn't need to be, and so on and so forth. But that's the who I was, not who I am. And because of Dave, his family, surround myself with good people, Christian people, giving me direction. At 40 years old now, like maybe it was late, maybe it's better now than ever, but I feel super confident in like what I want out of life and the type of people I want to surround myself with and the type of things that I want to do in life. And it's not I don't want to be a thing. I want to be a person. And Dave and his family and finding that good mentor is what took to get me where I'm at today in the thought process. So I'd like to see people do it at a lot earlier age. And my kids have seen the hard road dad, and they see a different dad now. And they tell me that, but I try to, I don't tell my kids do this, as much as I used to. I just tell them like, hey, look, I love you, and this is decisions that you're going to have to make on your own. And if I make them for you, you are going to regret the decisions. But I will always be there for you, and I'll help you, guide you, mentor you. Because that's what you need. I can't make the decisions for you as long as it's not immoral, unethical, or illegal. That you just have to figure it out. And the old me would have, been micromanaged that situation and done it myself. And like I said, I thank Dave and him for that. But one thing I did, we missed, Dave. I wanted you to tell. This is a super great story about the flag, the hurricane flag, or the tornado. This is a super great story.
The Tuscaloosa tornadoes.
Yeah. Back, was it April the 27th, 2011? We got hit by 13 tornadoes that day in our area, and I actually got hit on the 13th of April at I had a small farm down in Hill County. It got hit at like 11 o'clock that morning. My house got hit at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and my business office got hit by the same tornado. And then on the 27th is when the big one came through that killed so many people. And I had some heavy equipment and So I went out right after the storm and started trying to help people I had skid steers and grapple buckets and some dump beds, and I just wanted to go help people, try to get trees off. And over a period of days, FEMA came in and Samaritan's Purse came in, and lots of people were there. And I was just working around neighborhoods, just trying to help people, and had lost everything. And I was by myself running the skid steer, and there was a lot of people around cutting trees on other lots. And I picked up a house that was completely crushed. And as I was picking up a grapple load, I thought I saw a piece of a flag. And so I got out, pulled my headphones out, and I'm digging through the rubble, and I'm like, oh my God, that is a flag. And so I start peeling the rubble back, and I'm by myself, and I peel the rubble back, and I get the flag out, and I dust it off, and it's dirty, and it's got rips in it, and I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, that this is what we're doing. We're helping people, and it's the greatest flag in the world. And I put this flag out, and I fold it up, and I start to walk to my truck, and there's 50 to 100 people that have stopped and saw me digging this flag out. And when I pulled it out, they all started screaming and hollering and cheering, and it was like one of the greatest moments of my life, and I'm by myself. There's nobody. I'm like, I wish I had a video of this, I'm trying to tell. So I come home and I tell my wife about this flag and about what happened. And so for my birthday, it was in June, she took the flag and had it framed. And it's framed exactly like it was the day I found it, with the tears and the dirt, and it just says "Standing Proud," April 27, 2011.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's in my house. It's been in my business ever since. It was the first thing you saw when you
came in. Did you ever find the owner?
Never found the owner. Never found anything else out about the flag. I have no idea where it came from.
Yeah,
stuff was literally scattered everywhere.
Yeah, if anybody's not familiar with that episode, I mean, it's well known, especially for people down here in the South, about those tornadoes that came through there. I think that was in F4. Was it F4 or F5?
It was F4. Long track.
Yeah, and I mean, serious damage that happened to Tuscaloosa, and what an amazing story. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, first off, I just want to, say how much I appreciate, Dave, you coming on the show. You probably didn't have any idea what you were getting yourself into when you walked in the door. But I think what's so great about this is Jason being able to share his journey further than what he already did on his episodes that he talked about, but then talked about the role that you played in all of that. And it sounds like you've done more just through your friendship without you even realizing it, which is always the best, of not just that moment in that time at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, but then since then, all the ways in which you've been impactful. Just amazing.
Well, he's been just that amazing. He's been that impactful to my family, my wife, my daughter, my son. My son, every question he has, and as now he starts his military journey in the Air Force, and he calls Jason, or Jason sends him letters, or just help. He's a big brother, and it's kind of a neat process, because I don't know the answers to some of the questions he's asking, and I believe it takes a tribe to raise a child, and I'm very careful who I put in my tribe, and I would take 1,000 Jasons any day of the week to come be a part of our team. I just hope we're as much of an asset to him as he has been to us. So,
more than he'll ever know, Dave.
Well, it's been a lot of fun for sure, and we have great times. It's not always doom and gloom, sad stories, or me teaching lessons. I mean, we're as goofy as the next guy, but we like to laugh a lot, and he likes to sing and play, and it's not that good. But
it is horrible. It is horrible.
I'll tell you, he gives me a lot of confidence, because I really suck singing, but he sings and plays the guitar, and I'm like, God, if he can do that, I can do anything, because he just sucks. And
I taught myself on deployment. That's what I thought of that social media stuff.
It's truly amazing. He taught himself to play on YouTube, and he really is good. I'm just kidding. And he's really got a great voice. He just doesn't sing in the right key sometimes. It's a great.
Trying to find that. Gotta get Casey to help me back.
Yeah. We have a friend that can really
both
sing.
ears.
It's a tendonitis in the
Yeah. So no, we keep it real, man. If he's needs a kick in the butt, I definitely give him one.
And that's a good thing. That's what I was saying is like, when you surround yourself with people, when I say that, like good people and like-minded, all that, like you're not looking for the person who's going to pat you on the back and tell you everything you do is right. You're looking for, I want to find people in my circle that are going to do just like they be like, no, you're the problem right now. Or you're jacked up. Like, think about it, and run you through all the scenarios and be that too when you need it.
I really messed Jason up. This a few months ago, Jason, he called me and he was extremely upset over a situation. And I answered the phone, and he's like, gives me this spiel, and he's upset. And I said, well, that is great. I said, I am so glad that happened to you. And it was dead silence for like 2.
That's madder than hell.
I bet he was like, Dave, all those nice things I said about you, I take them back. But
it was a lesson though, and that's what you need,
Yeah.
And I've passed that lesson along since, like, the whole. You worded it better than I do.
Well, I don't know which part.
The part where he's like, the people that come into your life, the bad people, learn that from them, and then. Oh yeah,
you got to use, if the greatest thing we can ask for is wisdom, and wisdom comes from a multitude of counselors. You may love the way I raise my family, but you don't like the way I execute my business. And so you can take something from me that I'm doing well, and you apply that in your life. But, you got to be careful who you get your advice from, because you might end up with their income. And so I might not go ask a broke guy how to make money. You know? So the guy that gave him some advice, it was not in his expertise. And he gave him some poor advice. Well, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You got to look at the guy that gave you advice and say, you know what, I forgive you for what you said, because I realized I asked the wrong person the wrong question. And so that doesn't apply in my life. I don't accept that in my life, because I asked the wrong person the wrong question. I wouldn't ask one of my buddies how to go kick a door in and capture a bad guy. I mean, he didn't know that. He'd get me killed, right? But he may be my banker, and I need to know how finance works.
Right.
And so he can give me phenomenal advice in that area. So the guy that Jason asked the question was he asked the wrong question to the wrong guy, and it really upset him. And so I just pointed it out. I laughed at him, and I said, man, I'm glad you asked that question, because this is a great moment here, because we won't ever do that again, right?
It was that last night, because when I called him, I was madder than hell.
Yeah.
And and then he said, I'm glad you asked. I'm glad he said that. And I was like,
yeah.
And then he explained it, and I was like, damn, that's a lesson learned there.
Well, I want to give an opportunity for you once again, though, to not only mention Marcus's business, but also your own. As part of an opportunity here, you're getting a chance to speak to other people and share that again, so that people can find more out about Marcus, for sure.
Yeah, Marcus owns Limitless Canines, and you can find him on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Phenomenal guy. I mean, you're just not going to find anybody any better. I really think he is the dog whisperer, because he walks into a room and my dog is jumping on people, and he just like speaks language that I don't understand, and he acts right, makes me look bad. So give me some of that, Marcus. And then for my business, I'm just a small entrepreneur. My wife and I have had a salon and spa in Tuscaloosa. It's called TL Signature Salon for over 20 years. And then I own a company with a partner, Dr. Tidwell, that is accident, spine, and rehab. And we do personal injury work and do a lot of objective finding medical scenarios for people that can't afford insurance, or their deductibles are too high and they can't afford to go to the doctor. So we try to give them some help and relief with that. I own rental properties, and I've got another company called PCR Diagnostics, and we have laboratories. They're high complexity molecular labs that are in. I have one in Gainesville, Georgia, one in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and one in Fort Collins, Colorado, and opening a new one in New Orleans. So we didn't really get in the business for COVID. We actually said we would not test for COVID, and we got overrun with COVID, you know. So the last couple of years we've been doing a lot of COVID tests. So, but those, you know, I bought and sold companies. I built companies and sold them. I'm just a serial entrepreneur. You know, I built and sold Strike Hard to B2 Digital. If you like the fighting industry, it's the minor leagues of B2. It's a publicly traded company, and I was just at the fights last night. It's amazing. You can find them on Instagram, YouTube, they pay-per-view. They're going to fight 60 fights over the next 52 weeks. So that's a neat deal. So
yeah. No, I appreciate you sharing all that, because I think your wide array of entrepreneurship there gives hope to some people who may think that they've got to hone in on one specific niche or whatever. And what you're describing there is, you know, things from diagnostic testing to salons to whatever, demonstrates that you don't have to put your toes into just one piece of water. You know, you can go all over. It can,
yes,
you know.
Yes. My mind works that way anyway.
Yeah.
You know, but I love people. I build relationships with people, and there's a lot of people that have great ideas but don't know how to apply them. And you know, that's probably what I'm good at is being able to get the right people in place and get the right people on the bus, whether it be you know, your insurance team, your attorneys, your bankers. I can get these people all together, and we start executing. You know, what is your dream? You know, what do you want to do, and how do you want to do it? And then we start figuring out, you know, is there a need? You know, what's the profit potential in the need? And then you start developing a plan. And so that's kind of what I'm good at, and that's how I've ended up in so many collected different businesses, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Dave, thank you again for taking time out to come on our show and, you know, sitting here and allowing this guy to share your story and
thank you, brother,
and joining him.
Well, I appreciate you. It was very humbling to get to come here, so thank you very much for letting me come.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate you.